Hello everyone, today is Thursday, the 7th of September 2017. It is block height 484,070. Anyone can pick up a camera and magic will happen. You aren't fucking special, you just have access to resources we don't. I say, don't mythologize yourself, actively tear down your pedestal, be honest and share your tools. I love this tweet storm earlier today by Lauren Schmidt. I hadn't heard of Lauren actually before this tweet storm. I just saw it retweeted in my timeline. And I really felt like it captured some of the essence of what we're about on this show. And today's show actually, I guess, is dedicated to two friends of ours in the community, Vivo and Bota. A lot goes on behind the scenes to make these videos happen on the Bitcoin Mumble chat room before we go on air. The titles, the images, all of that is collaborated and crowdsourced. I'm just the guy on the camera that has the password to the YouTube channel. I'm not in charge, I'm not the boss. And you can be part of it too. You can click on the link below to the Bitcoin Mumble, you can come in, say hi, and so we can all work on this thing together in the hive mind. Shinobi, give me an impression.
Well, it's everybody's just gotta remember, no one's special. Life's pointless. Everyone's gonna die alone. So just buy some Bitcoin and come watch TV.
Today we found out that Shinobi is really good at doing funny voices. We're definitely going to be incorporating this in the future, just to kind of bring down, make it a bit lowbrow. Everyone happy?
Anything I can do to make myself stupider.
Good. Make us dumb too. Janine, make us dumb right now and tell us what this first story is all about. Equifax Hacked.
Okay, so this is breaking news. This only came out in the last half hour or so, and it's about Equifax. It should be called Equihacks now, because apparently they've had a huge data breach that has affected about 143 million US customers, plus some US and Canadian, UK and Canadian customers as well. They haven't released that number. They just said it was another percentage of people that were affected. And including in the data breach, they say there are names, birth dates, social security numbers, addresses, driver's license numbers, a bunch of things that you don't want, because on the website that they've drawn up called Equifax Security 2017, which is where you're supposed to sign up for credit monitoring services and identity protection. They have this little slogan at the very bottom that says, powering the world with knowledge, which I don't think that this is the kind of powering they wanted to be doing, or the knowledge they kind of wanted to be releasing. So yeah, they've, as I said, they're offering credit monitoring services now. The way you sign up is you go to that website, and oddly enough, they're asking you to enter in your last name and the last 6 digits of your social security number, which I don't know how many people would actually be comfortable doing that, because this breach just happened. And also, yeah, so just to clarify, the website is Equifax Security 2017.com, I think .com. And what's infuriating me, especially as an information security person about this story, is the fact that they only discovered the breach had occurred at the end of July 29th. That's when they found out it had happened. They still don't know when it happened, when it started. They don't know how much information was accessed or by who. They don't know any of that yet. And for some reason, they've waited over a month to tell everyone about this. So I'm pretty pissed off about that.
Yeah, that's pretty messed up. I mean, they're asking for the last 6 digits of a social. They usually only ask for the last 4. Now you're increasing. Like, why are they asking for the extra 2 digits?
I can double check. I'm pretty sure it's 6, but it might be 4. It's just they're asking for, a couple of digits of social security in order to sign up for the service.
Yeah, this is exactly why keeping information like this in a centralized database is just, it's beyond retarded. I mean, 143 million people, that's half of the US.
Yeah, well, in fact, it was just under half of all their customers, as it was pointed out in the tweet storm that I saw. But why is the social security number even being used as a password in the first place?
Exactly. That
oh
is
yeah,
horrible.
there's actually a really good video about this by what's his name, Gray. We watch a lot of his videos on YouTube. He did a really excellent video about why or the history of social security numbers and how they were not intended to be used as identity numbers ever. There's like a long history of the Social Security Service saying, no, this number is not supposed to be an identity number, and for some reason it's been adopted as one, and it's a really bad idea because the number is really deterministic. It's based on where, or at least it used to be. I think they might have changed it recently, but it used to be based on where you were born, the year you were born. Sometimes even it would be based on the region where your hospital was in. It's crazy that they're, the whole Social Security system is messed up.
Yeah, this is the video that Janine and I watched, and we love this guy, CGP Gray, on YouTube. He's got a lot of really good videos that explain some things in Eli 5 fashion. But I guess it wasn't just the old legacy centralized financial institution that were hacked today. Well, not, I shouldn't say hacked. I mean, they were hacked. IOTA wasn't hacked, but a serious vulnerability was discovered. And this is by Neha Narula and others. She cites a few people in the tweet below. But essentially, they were using their own custom, IOTA that is, were using their own custom hashing algorithm, which left them vulnerable. And as Peter Todd, Bitcoin Core contributor and general all-out talented troll on the internet, pointed out, you should never really roll your own crypto. And so this is the full report. I mean, Shinobi, what do you make of this?
I mean, I think this is the biggest fuck up I've ever seen in this space. When it comes to the security of a hash algorithm, that's math. You are essentially making an assumption about how a specific mathematical formula works and the difficulty in attempting to reverse that. So in a way, there is no such thing as a known secure algorithm. There are just algorithms that are known to not be insecure at the moment. It's not like a piece of code. You can go through it. You can find all the fringe cases and make sure that the instructions it's giving to the processor are what you intend to. It's making a basic assumption about the underlying mathematics. And there is a reason why you do not roll your own, because the algorithms that are accepted as usable and secure nowadays are only considered so because they have been around for decades without being broken, being used by systems. It's pretty much like Bitcoin. They're used in systems that is effectively function as a bug bounty. It is used to secure things that are of such importance that the fact they have not been compromised yet is really the only indication of how secure a specific algorithm is. And the notion that a cryptocurrency project is just going to roll their own. When Satoshi built Bitcoin, he went through a large number of implementations of hash functions before he decided on ecliptic curve that it uses. That was a very carefully thought out thing, and that is a very old and established hash function, and that was for a reason. And the thing that really infuriates me here is this was put together by it was Neha, obviously, Ethan Heilman, who was one of the creators of Tumblebit, and Tej Jaija from Lightning Network, that all put this together. These are people that are out there building their own things, actually working in this space, and they took the time to audit this project and found this. And the IOTA team did not even take it seriously as a concern. As you can see in Neha's breakdown, they did not think that it was a serious problem, that they had created their own hash function that was found to be trivially broken. Like, this is ridiculous. And when, personally, as a Bitcoin maximalist, I know I'm going to be perceived as arrogant here by some, but this is exactly what people like me talk about when we immediately assume that a new project is a scam or a broken concept. We don't start from giving the benefit of the doubt. We start with the assumption that it's broken, because things like this happen. People don't know what they're doing. People are foolhardy. People don't really think through the risks and the dangers that can come of them. And then this was a $2 billion project secured by something that was fundamentally broken. And it was not even known until people from entirely different projects stepped in and analyzed it and found it to be broken. And even when that happened, the team who built it still does not see this as a serious problem. Like, this is, it's ridiculous. This is $2 billion of people's money.
But people are not going to divest in the current climate of crypto and all the bullish sentiment just because of some, technical reason. It's got, that it's not going to make headlines. I didn't see the IOTA price, dump, when because this was unveiled in July, right? And through August, this was happening behind the scenes.
Yes, it was handled very professionally. This is how you handle a problem like this. You do not immediately go shouting from the mountaintops. You go to the people who are relevant to it. You fix the problem, and then you disclose it. And it is only because the people who found this flaw are ethical people with integrity that actually did the morally right thing, the professional thing, that this did not lead to this entire project imploding. If the wrong person had found this, they could have stolen as much money as they want. They could have forked this project into diverging DAGs. They could have totally destroyed it. And it is simply by the luck and the happenstance chance that these specific people found this vulnerability that did not happen.
Yeah, actually, the price did drop today about 10% or so against the dollar via IOTA. And Peter Todd is saying that it's stupid that the IOTA is now fixing it by implementing a SHA-3. I think it's Hacked they're using the same as Ethereum's, right? Why is that stupid?
Well, from what I can see, they're actually taking their algorithm and they're re-implementing it using SHA-3. So they're taking the basic thing that they started with, and it's pretty much trying to use a more proven curve or mathematical function for it. And it's not so much that the fixing it is a problem, in my opinion. It's that they do not appreciate the seriousness of how big this fuck up was. And even in Neha's breakdown, she said that they're actually still using this algorithm that was broken in other aspects of the project besides signature signing. I haven't had the time to actually look into what places this is still being used in, but if they are in any way consensus critical or tied to the encumbrance that actually allows you to say you own something because of your key, then this is still attackable. And it's like, again, it's the precedent. This would have destroyed something worth $2 billion if the wrong person had found this first.
Yeah. Well, because I mean, I don't have a problem with people rolling their own crypto. The problem, obviously, in this case, is that there's money involved, and it's the same thing with a lot of projects in the space, like even Ethereum, where they could be designing something that could be really innovative and really useful, but they put too much money into it too fast, and so the security isn't tested properly, and everything blows up. And also, I think the marketing that they did for IOTA kind of hurt them in that they said, oh, the curl, what is it, the curl hash function? Because it's a hash-based digital signature algorithm, right? I think that's what it is. They marketed it as being quantum secure. So people read that and they're like, oh, okay, quantum secure, then it's better than Bitcoin and blah, blah, blah. So they didn't look into it fully enough. And so, yeah, you're right. They're lucky that they got people that, didn't decide, because a lot of all the Ethereum hacks that have happened and a lot of hacks in the other cryptocurrencies, they happen because the incentive for a hacker is to just hack the project, take the money and leave. It's not to do a bug bounty thing, because most bug bounty programs don't pay out enough. And so they're lucky that they got a group of people that they didn't have those incentives.
Yeah, and real quick, I actually didn't know they're advertising it as quantum safe. Because that offends the shit out of me, because it's a ridiculous assertion. To say that Bitcoin is not quantum safe is just factually incorrect. The only way in which a quantum computer would affect Bitcoin is in terms of mining, in the speed at which blocks could be found and how that would affect the difficulty. In terms of the actual security of the signature, all it does is roughly cut in half the time it would take to brute force a Bitcoin signature. And that is still an insanely long amount of time. And it can be trivially fixed by simply doubling the length of the numbers that are used for the private public key pairs. So this is even more ridiculous than I thought it was. Like, not only did they just fundamentally release something totally broken, but they lied in order to pretty much throw it out in a sales pitch that made it seem better than something else. That's ridiculous.
People in the chat saying we're taking it out of proportion, guys. And this was known about. They dealt with it. It was all handled very professionally, as you said. But essentially, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, I'm personally, I'm interested in IOTA because it's doing a bunch of new things. So I mean, I wouldn't object to using it in the future, but I wouldn't, you know, I would want to wait for it to mature first. You know, because obviously they're testing so many new things at once that it's hard to tell, you know, what vulnerabilities might be present in those things. And so I'd want to wait for more experienced people to test them out.
Oh yeah, well, the DAG as a concept standing on its own is actually a pretty viable, interesting thing to look into. Ethereum actually uses it to a degree. That's how they have uncle blocks that are not orphaned and still receive some sort of reward. And if you actually go look at Scaling Bitcoin Hong Kong, there was actually a talk on how to integrate it into Bitcoin. But it needs some kind of backbone to keep the like cloud or graph instead of a singular chain moving forward. And right now, IOTA's solution to that is just a centralized thing that just goes, this is what I said.
Yeah, checkpointing. Okay, but let's move on because I don't want to blow it out of proportion. It was handled. They've dealt with it, but the takeaway from it is that you shouldn't be rolling your own crypto, and it sets it sets a bad tone for a $2 billion evaluated cryptocurrency. So
yeah, I got carried away.
Next up on the list, we love to bash the ICOs and the shitcoins, but sometimes it just gets too easy. Moving on to this story. Go, Shinobi.
This music to my ears. This is something I have been waiting for since the moment the IRS made a statement declaring Bitcoin a commodity and subjecting it to capital gains tax. Because obviously, I hope you all agree with me, the idea that me spending $2 worth of Bitcoin to buy a cup of coffee and having to pay whatever percentage of capital gains on that is ridiculous. So there's actually a Republican senator, I believe, from Arizona and a Democratic senator from Colorado that are trying to push a tax bill to exempt any kind of consumer use of Bitcoin under $, I believe it was. So this would actually fix, to a degree, at least on the consumer level, a lot of those ridiculous tax overheads in spending your Bitcoin. Like, I mean, this obviously isn't going to help it with things like maybe paying bills or buying big ticket items like property. But if this were to pass, this would get rid of so many headaches that are preventing people from just using Bitcoin as a currency, like it was like supposed to be done.
Indeed. Is this capital gains tax? What type of tax is it?
Well, yeah, it's an exemption from the capital gains. Obviously, you would still have to pay the sales tax and such involved in the price of anything. But it's just the accounting overhead in trying to keep track of every couple dollars that you spend based on your entry point and then having to declare that as a gains and pay a percentage on that. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, me personally, I do think that this decision, because right now it's just a bill, it hasn't been signed into law. If it does get signed into law, I mean, I think in the near term it's a really good thing, but because that will enable more, especially new people who might be afraid, or they don't understand all of the legal consequences of using cryptocurrencies, they might be more willing to spend it, which is a really good thing because we want people to be spending it in the real world and not just, you know, holding it or speculating on it. The only thing I'm worried about is that it kind of fits into this whole shift in recent years where, like, especially in the EU, different countries are putting limits on, like, how much it's related to cash, how much cash you can spend without being KYC'd, or how much you can withdraw from the bank. So I think it's kind of related to that. And I'm worried that because they're setting the limit at $600 that you can spend without paying capital gains tax, I'm kind of worried about the precedent that might set for those kinds of decisions in the US.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's going to be a sticky road going forward, but it could definitely turn south and be used as a basis to build a lot more destructive or inhibitive policies. But I think for a first step, it's a good direction.
Okay, tell me about Canada. Tell me what's happening in British Columbia. It's a landmark, apparently.
Yeah, this is the first investment fund that has actually been acknowledged and properly regulated in Canada. It's going to be an interesting thing going forward because obviously, as the running theme for this week has shown, there's a lot of interest from regulatory agencies in different countries really looking to figure out how do they integrate all of this stuff into the current regulatory framework, into the larger socioeconomic structures of things. And not only is this just the precedent of the first investment fund being acknowledged and regulated, but they've actually established a team a little while back that was involved in an interactive process with this fund to kind of collaboratively help them arrive at the best way to manage complying with regulations, actually handling on a security level the assets that they're exposed to. And it's really encouraging to me because, you know, like we've seen a lot this week, there's a big divide being drawn where you have a lot of these agencies and countries kind of trying to take a more draconian, like, boot on the throat approach where they just want to stomp these things out. But you're also seeing a lot of other agencies and countries trying to and how they can fit things into the way that everything works now without really stomping out all the potential for change and new utility that it can provide.
Yeah, very cool. I love this quote. We strongly encourage other companies in British Columbia, whether they're potential new registrants or existing investment fund managers, to contact the BCSH's tech team if they're considering pursuing cryptocurrency investments in their funds. So this
exactly. They're reaching out for that input. They're not just dictating that this is it, deal with it, or get out of here. They want to see what the people involved in the space's attitude is.
Yeah, that's fantastic news. That's very good. Good on you, Canada. Well done.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought, given the past year of of political development in the country, I'd be giving them props. But hey, good on you.
It's not all just snow. And what's up with Japan right now?
Well, GMO is actually a big company involved in internet infrastructure in Japan, and they're trying to branch out into Bitcoin mining now. Effectively, I think what their plans was a set number of chips to produce with a goal of a specific electrical efficiency. I can't remember the efficiency they were shooting for, but they were going to attempt 10 terahash chips and to produce around 500 petahashes in total of hash power. And I assume they're still shopping around for locations. There wasn't a specific location given in this article, but they want to establish a mining farm in Northern Europe. And, you know, this is good. Like we've seen Russia attempting to monetize and find business models for mining operations, while the electrical producers of the country are looking to offload the surplus electricity they have nothing to do with. Now a major Japanese internet giant, and I also believe they have a Bitcoin exchange that they're either in the process of opening or just recently opened, is getting into the mining game. We're starting to see at a much slower pace, like operations pick up in America. And he's not a person that I'm that fond of, but jurisdictionally, his plans to move farms into America, I see as positive overall, and other farms starting to open up. Things are starting to distribute a lot more. And I really think over the next few years, we're going to see ourselves move away from the situation where you have all these stereotypes with some underlying tones of racism or bigotry in some cases, that all the miners are in China. It's going to lose its weight. We're going to move away from that world, and it's not going to be the scapegoat that people can use to cause divides.
The traders, especially on whale pool, love to shout out China every time the price moves, and China. I don't think Japan doesn't quite have that, does it? Do you know what I mean? It doesn't quite have that ring to it. You can't shout it. It's not stochastic enough. China. We won't be able to say it's centralized anymore. What about all the racist jokes?
But we'll find other things to make jokes about, other catchphrases. They come and go.
Yeah, that's the thing about these Bitcoin miners. They don't talk sports with you. They don't speak English. They don't speak Spanish. They're all foreigners coming over here, taking our jobs with their skill sets and work ethics. Right. Let's just talk.
What are these people thinking? Applying themselves and trying to better themselves. Who do they think they are?
Exactly. Okay, on to the fake news section now. This is all just gossip. As you know, we're trying to dumb things down here at Block Digest. We don't want it to all be highbrow. We just want to do some low-level gossip and just some real trashy kind of National Enquirer style stuff. So there's a new account on Twitter at @big_blockers, big blockers, which apparently, in quotes, tracks all the big blockers. Okay, I'm not into this whole like divisiveness. But Shinobi, what does it mean that Roger Ver has unfollowed Coinbase? What do we read into that?
Well, entirely my speculation here. But I don't see Roger as the type to just randomly unfollow somebody. And I do think there has to be an underlying reason there. And it's one of the biggest exchanges that was a party to the New York Accord, with all the other players starting to look for outs. A few of them, Bitwala, F2 Pool, already actively pulled out. I have to wonder if there's maybe been some change in attitude in Coinbase regarding the agreement in the background, and maybe Roger is a little emotionally reactive to that.
No, I think you're just spreading lies and gossip. So you're saying that because Roger has unfollowed Coinbase on Twitter, like this is really lowbrow, you're saying that maybe Coinbase is thinking of walking out of the NYA agreement?
Well, yeah, see, the cool thing is if I just say it's my opinion beforehand, I can pretty much just say anything and get away with it.
But he doesn't even like the NYA thing. He's all about that Bitcoin Cash now. He's putting out stuff in mailing lists and telling people about it and how they get their transactions confirmed in the next block, which could be for another 7 hours, but you never know with that blockchain. But why would he care about the New York agreement?
See, I've been wondering that since Bitcoin Cash forked away, because when it really comes down to it, I think that the people behind Bitcoin Cash seem to be the most vocally insistent group behind the New York Accord and SegWit 2x. And that just screams a conflict of interest to me. I mean, they forked away because they're unhappy of the direction we're going in. They have their own system now, and good on them. They actually put their money where their mouth was. They did what they want. They have a foundation to build in the direction they want to. So why do they continue insisting they fuck with the system that we're operating? Why do they have their own system now? So do they think they can just have their fingers in every piece of the pie and just steer the whole landscape? Like I don't really understand the logic. in any way other than just a lack of appreciation for just the scope of everything that's going on, or a desire to actually destroy the other system to the benefit of the one that they've now created. It's a huge conflict of interest in my mind, and I don't see an ethical reason behind it.
I think we will just have to wait and see what happens in the coming days. But I love this this account. I won't be retweeting it much because, again, I don't want to promote this divisiveness in the community around big blockers and small blockers. But I acknowledge I'm human. It was kind of funny to me. Now, today we've got a special new inline producer, Gibbous. And Gibbous, what can you play for us? A blast from the past. Show us something.
I have no problem with the banking system and the financial industry co-opting Bitcoin, primarily because Bitcoin can't really be co-opted. The fact that it's decentralized means no one can control it, no matter who they are or how much money they have.
I think it's all good for Bitcoin. I think all of the innovation that's happening, both on Wall Street and in Silicon Valley, I think competition will take care of people who want to try to have a monopoly, or who want to try to charge more than they should for whatever product or service that is happening on the blockchain. It really is as advertised. It really is controlled by all the people who are using it. And it really is designed just to be a more efficient, more fair way of sending value over the internet.
Wait, what did he just say? Shinobi, what did Gavin Andresen just say in this 2016 documentary? I think he just said the people control it, didn't he?
I thought the miners were in charge.
I thought the miners were in charge too, mate. I'm really confused. Give me some help on this. Gibbous, thanks so much for that. This is a blast from the past, a new segment we're experimenting with. People that said shit in the past. And I can actually try and pull up the full quote from that. And we were talking yesterday about people glossing over, stuff that happened previously in Bitcoin's history. I don't know. What do you make of it? Oh, I'll still get this quote up.
Am I supposed to make up my own mind?
Pretty sure. What was Hack for Good saying last night? What was he saying to Satoshi Light?
I still can't wrap my head around this. I don't know if I can make my own decisions, Chris. I don't think I can handle it.
Right. Let's just go through it. Let's just go through it. Okay. So Erik Vorhees, who right now is in favor of the New York Agreement, has been tweeting a lot about it. Proof of Erik Vorhees, as he's now known. And Gavin Andresen, the person that, the former lead maintainer and lead developer and chief scientist of the Bitcoin Foundation and Bitcoin Core, who was one of the first sort of protagonists of this whole thing. We've got actually also an interview with him from 2015, I think. And so let's just run through it. I have no problem, says Erik Vorhees, I have no problem with the banking system and the financial industry co-opting Bitcoin, primarily because Bitcoin can't really be co-opted. The fact that it's decentralized means no one has control, no one can control it, no matter who they are or how much money they have. What, like Jihan Wu, you mean? What does he mean, like Bitmain? Who's he talking about? Anyone. It could be anybody. No one can control it. And then the
Fed, and only the Fed.
Yeah, this Andresen quote is just fantastic. I just think, he's talking in the context of Wall Street and Silicon Valley. Okay, he's not. That's what it's couching in, where he runs up to this point where he says, I think competition will take care of people who want to try and have a monopoly or who want to try and charge more than they should for whatever product or service that is happening on the blockchain. It really is as advertised. It really is controlled by the people who are using it. So this is the rumor that I want to start spreading, that Gavin Andresen is Shaolin Fry and it's all a big psyop operation.
I'd buy it. I'd buy that conspiracy for $1.
Now, Gibbous, do you have the other video? This was from 2016. Johnny, what was that video, documentary called, please, that we just linked to? It's in the description, in the show notes below. Banking on Bitcoin. Thank you. Banking on Bitcoin. So that's the name. The link to that actual documentary, it's actually a really good documentary. It's in the description below. No audio.
All right, we got this synced up.
No audio.
Outside it, as Bitcoin had imagined.
Oh wait, that's the wrong video. Give us wrong video. Do you have the YouTube one? It doesn't matter if you don't have it. We'll improvise. We'll do it live. But basically,
we'll just make something up. We'll just put this is our opinion before it, and then it's okay.
Yeah. So the other video was the video where I was actually at. The link's in the description, and it's basically a video of Gavin Andresen and Mike Hearn at a London Bitcoin meetup, where they were talking about who should lead Bitcoin and whether it's governable.
How do you get consensus? Why are you arguing out the block size limit after so many years?
I mean, yeah, a lot of people are pushing me to be more of a dictator.
Canned laughter.
Like Mike. And that.
Why not rename it instead of dictator, just traffic pop or something? But like kind of decision maker rather than dictator.
Icebreaker. I mean, that may be what has to happen with the block size. Frankly, I may just have to throw my weight around and say, this is the way it's going to be. And if you don't like it, find another project.
We've got consensus.
This.
So there is a clip of Gavin Andresen, and who was the former lead maintainer. And this was when he was going around doing sort of talks. He was at the big blockchain.info hackathon as well in London. And these guys were like, this was back in like 2015. I think I was in that room. I was at the back of the room, and I was kind of watching this play out. And it's really interesting seeing everything that's happened in Bitcoin, and then going back sometimes to look at these early quotes, right, Shinobi? Because it's so easy to be wrong with Bitcoin, where it's changing rapidly. Like a week is a month feels like a year sometimes in this space. And what he basically just said there, maybe I do need to be a bit of a dictator. Maybe I do need to like kick people off the project. And if you don't like it, well, maybe you just need to go off and work on something else. And then he turned out he was the one that worked on something else.
Yeah, that's where like things really started changing, I think, is when Mike Hearn started pushing for XT. And it's really like, it's mind-boggling. A lot of the attitudes that have just done such a 180 over the years. I mean, a lot of what Gavin used to say, I mean, he obviously like has always had different thoughts on the definition of decentralization. Never really thought it important that every user out there who wants to can run a node. I think it's been more miner focused in his mind, that he's wanted to see miners more decentralized. But nowadays, it seems like he doesn't care that we have such a degree of centralization there. And when you look at Jeff Garzik, like some of the things, like there's literally there is a whole repository out there of old Jeff Garzik quotes, and if you read it, it is almost exactly the arguments being made by most core developers nowadays, almost to a T. The exact same thought process, the exact same rationalization, the exact same take on information that led him there. And it's just a switch flipped. And it's hard to really narrow down a specific event, but it always seems to kind of tie back to Mike Hearn. And a lot of the things he did in this space, I really question. I mean, he developed Bitcoin J. That was a huge accomplishment. That was the first real light client with the chain without needing the entire blockchain, the entire history. But after that, when he started making proposals for the core currency, I don't know what the hell he was thinking. He wanted to encourage miner centralization specifically so that they could implement blacklists. He proposed a cryptographic top layer so that all of your addresses would be tied to a government known ID, so that you had no privacy in terms of the government's point of view on this system. And it seems like everywhere this man went, he I can't think of a better word, but poisoned the minds of the other people he got involved with. Like
and so I mean this was a video. You can go watch it again. It was actually a video by a good friend of mine, Tom Cantor, who's in London and goes by the name of I Am Satoshi. Sometimes IamSatoshi.com, I think, is his website. And yeah, it was from April 2015, I was there at this meetup, and this was the precursor. This was when they were promoting XT, Bitcoin XT. It was the precursor to Bitcoin Classic, the precursor to Bitcoin Unlimited, and all the other Bitcoin Cash. But this was really when things started to all go off the rails. This was when these two particularly started to play politics, started to go through back channels, rallying, brigading, getting support from various sub-communities, the business community and the miners and all that kind of stuff. And this was actually back when the miners in China were disagreeing with this prospect of bigger blocks, because apparently it was going to slow down that block propagation. Do you remember that? I actually remember that.
Yes. Mike Hearn actually made a trip to China to try to lobby the miners and convince them to run XT. But the initial plan of 8 megabytes and then ramping up to 8 gigabytes was way too untenable for most of them. And then you actually saw the same thing repeat itself with Jeff Garzik after Classic was pushed when XT failed, and he tried the same thing. And it's not to get like a little snipey. I'll wrap this up quick after this, but it's you saw those early attempts of these break-off factions attempting to lobby specific players to push the whole system in a specific direction, and these accusations of lobbying are being thrown at the people who weren't doing those things. It's like a weird, like, if I accuse you first, then you can't accuse me legitimately.
Can I interact here?
It's a very weird.
Yes, you can.
Sorry to budge in. I was meant to only handle the audio and
video.
So
what you want to say? Give us.
But I guess we'll in the description add the link to this video so people can make their own opinion about this. And as Chris pointed out, I think in previous episodes, this is what we're trying to do. As much as we might all be maximalists, we all believe that people should come to maybe similar, maybe different conclusions, but through the same process, the process of actually integrating the same information. And if I guess we're going to link to this video in the description. People can overview it again, but if you actually watch it and listen to what those people are saying, Gavin is talking about throwing his weight around to push this thing. And if people aren't happy, they can, to quote someone else, they can just piss off. That's not Gavin's words, but basically that's what he's saying. It's quite funny if you actually, well, funny in a, sorry,
peculiar, funny as in peculiar
way, yeah. If you kind of watch this and understand what has been going on, and recently you understand that basically they've ended up on the wrong end of that spectrum, and that in the sense that the network is telling them to fuck off, but it's not one person moving their weight. It's the whole network.
It's the people, as Gavin Andresen said in the following year in a documentary, which we also showed everyone. The people are in control of this thing.
Exactly. This is not a net. It's very hard for people to comprehend this notion, but this is a network for the people. Companies do not have more weight in this than any user. They're just another user with more activity.
Yeah.
But they are just a user. This is not a network which can just be co-opted. This is not, that's just not how it sorry.
Yeah, the barriers to entry, the barriers to entry are too low for the system. And speaking of barriers, Shinobi, let's talk about those early Satoshi coins. And I guess we're answering Max Kaiser in the chat from yesterday, right? This is a follow-on from a question or a concern he had. So go ahead and talk about SD Learner. He actually put this together back in 2010. I think, or 11 maybe.
Well, effectively, Max, the source of this notion that Satoshi has 1 million coins is entirely speculative based on an analysis of the frequency of blocks mined in the early day. So effectively, what you see here is a mapping of the frequency and the consistency of that frequency of blocks being pumped out during that timeline. And ultimately, or around 1 million coins mined in that time. But there is absolutely no concrete evidence whatsoever that that was Satoshi Nakamoto. Obviously, he mined the Genesis block. We know that. He very likely mined blocks after that. But we have no way of distinguishing him as an individual from any of the other early people at that time. There is no way to look at that frequency of blocks coming in and know that was a single individual. That could have been 2 or 3 or a dozen people that were just mining uncontested for a while. There could have been a rough number of people with some cycling in and out. There is absolutely no concrete evidence that those are all Satoshi's coins. It is all speculation based on this analysis of the frequency they came in at.
So let's just Eli 5 this for a second. Sorry, I was wrong about the time. It was October 2012 is the date that's been put on this. And he basically did it by downloading the bootstrap.dat file, which used to be made available up on BitTorrent. I think some of the developers used to upload the blockchain up to a certain block height. And you can basically scan through it and look at the intervals, right, between each block. And assumptions were made, like, for example, that, the first 50 blocks, there wasn't even a transaction. I think block 51, don't quote me on that, but roughly block 51 was the first time a transaction was spent. So the assumption really is that, basically there's only one miner, or a very, very small number of miners early on, and therefore it would be easy to figure out, the profile, because of this sort of consistency, as you see here, that's been pointed out, that presumably is the same computer, just mining. Otherwise, if it was a different computer, you might see more variance, right, between each block time.
Yeah. If there was a large interplay or influx of new hash power dropping off in significant chunks, that would not be as predictable. So you can say that there was at least a set group or a group of people that was a set number roughly that was mining that. But that's about all you can say.
So he's saying he only takes into account the Coinbase transactions, and he says that he's assumed that if the Coinbase output is spent, then none of the spent coins went back to Satoshi. And I think that's quite a big assumption there, because there were so few people on the network at the time. Plus Satoshi hung around for a little while, and coins were circulated around, a small group of people just for experimentation and so forth. And we should also point out that we don't know if these coins have been spent. We don't actually have like a concrete list of addresses, do we? I mean, people might put stuff out there. You can look at the rich
not
list.
Available on hand, but it's out there somewhere and can be derived from the chain.
Well, yeah. So I've seen people say, "Oh, here's a rich list going right back, early on," and obviously we can see on the blockchain itself, we can see which ones have been spent, but assumptions are being made. We don't know if the entity known as Satoshi Nakamoto still has control over those private keys, right? And so just because
we don't even know if the keys still exist, they could have been lost.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, this is an ongoing myth in the industry, an urban legend for Bitcoin about Satoshi's coins, and the market always kind of gets a little bit spooked when there's any kind of hint that maybe Satoshi is back and he might dump his coins.
Sorry, could I budge in a second?
Please do, yeah.
Yeah,
of course.
Sorry, this only engages me and my opinions and how I perceive things. But we have some people, just like you've pointed out, this is I don't know how to call it, an urban legend or a myth, or no one knows what to make about it. And some very smart scammer could look at this and think, wow, there's a place to take there. There's a big mystery. If I can capture some attention around this mystery, maybe I can make myself very important. And this is very ABC scam techniques, and some just happens that on around this truth chain. We'll talk in other episodes why some of us like to call the base blockchain, the only one proof chain, the truth chain. But Sorry about this. I tend to speak slowly when I want to be precise. But, you know, this is a perfect opportunity for a scammer to just jump in and say, it was me all along. And yeah, sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought of what I wanted to say. But
it's an attack vector potentially to anybody who has points
it is. Exactly. It's just a very mystical situation where we don't know if Satoshi is still alive, if he's an individual. Some people refute the idea that it might be a group. I personally believe humans are capable of that, and it could be a group, but yeah, to get back to the point, sorry, I tend to slow down when I'm trying to look into all the use cases. But we potentially have a situation where there is an unknown person who created this amazing system, and if you think about it, it's just a question of time. If you look at this situation in game theory, until someone just tries to tap in this, oh, maybe this guy is Satoshi. And sorry, we're kind of changing subjects here, but yeah,
it doesn't really matter. And this is what someone else has done already, you know, where they have a little bit of information enough that they can pull off, you know, this PR event and say, well, I am Satoshi and I can prove it, except, oh no, I can't. But that's because I don't want to, not because I actually physically can't. And anyway, I've done enough now to create some PR around this, and maybe I can get a good consultancy gig and set up a firm and, you know, do some patents and generally troll the whole industry.
Right. Yeah. And that works, you know, for a certain time until the ecosystem is educated enough to understand how easy it is to prove your identity, or how, yeah. So sorry if I'm steering this all off topic, but yeah, I just think it's important that people understand that, you know, well, I guess we might talk about this in other episodes, but the reason some people are so attached to this protocol and like to call it the truth chain in some ways is because really you can't fake truth in this ecosystem. It's all provable or it isn't. And someone who claims to be Satoshi might manage to fool a person or two by social engineering more than anything else, but it can't actually give the cryptographic proof of what he claimed. No, you know, this guy actually claimed, some guy claimed he could bring this cryptographic.
Yeah, some guy. And again, just our opinion. Yeah. But guys, we're running up to an hour here, so I want to knock this on the head. We don't know who Satoshi is. We're all Satoshi. All those cliches.
Yeah, that's what we should retain. We are all Satoshi.
Yeah, exactly. Right, guys, thanks so much for staying with us.
Craig.
Of you've stayed with us through the whole way through. don't cast. We're going to get sued. Damn it. That's just your opinion and doesn't represent the views of this YouTube channel or the host or anyone really. Just some anonymous troll on the internet.
Just some guy who does funny voices.
Yeah, we're going to have more funny voices from Shinobi, so you should definitely stay tuned. And you can like and subscribe this episode, but remember, only if you want to. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.